no here. So I'll call their names and they can respond accordingly. George Greenwich? Here. Dorothea Jones?
Here.
Carrie Mays?
Here.
And myself, Joseph Beechler. So at this time, I know there's going to be a number of times where the history of how we got here is going to be stated. And I'm going to, normally I might make that remarks as well as some of my fellow task force members, but we have the honor of having the person who, working along with the city council, appointed us to this body to carry out this particular task. This person is everywhere. You know, for those of us who had English classes, we know there was some poem or something, there was a poem called Everywhere. Well, that's what this person has done with regards to leading this particular city. So therefore, I'd like at this time to present our mayor, Michelle Wood.
I know the rules. Once you sit, then you got to stay and talk for a long time. So I want to take up the space for this. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to everyone. This is a room of people that are everywhere because half this room was at City Hall earlier in the day for our Black History commemoration right in City Hall. And there's a lot happening all across Boston. And so I really appreciate and treasure the fact that you've taken the time to engage on this process in addition to everything else that you all are already doing for our communities. I'm just here to say a quick hello and thank you. As you all know, we are here because the City Council and community members started the conversation many years ago, really decades and generations ago, about how cities everywhere should be talking about reparations. And then in the last several years, we had the chance to really make it real with legislation, of ordinance, creating a structure to guide our city through this set of conversations. We are at a little bit of a milestone today because thanks to the committee members, we were able to take one big first step in terms of the process to fully document the city of Boston's role in the transatlantic slave trade. And this will involve leaning on our incredible experts who will be working with the task force to ensure that in terms of the various sections of history that have been identified, that we are not only going back and looking at what's already been written, but really creating new scholarship and new history in terms of going to the original documents, going out in community, and then presenting a foundation that will begin the next steps of full community engagement recommendations and the journey from there on forward. So I want to thank the members here who are involved in that. I know there was a subcommittee that was especially involved. So thank you to Ms. Jones, Ms. Frazier, and Mr. Chair, and all the committee members who pitched in various ways there. And we have some of the partners who are here today in the room, who I'm sure will be introduced later, but thank you for taking on this task, putting yourselves forward and engaging on this journey with us, because we know that in order to move forward, we need to be sure and take full stock of where we've been, and that hopefully Boston's example can provide a roadmap also for many other communities as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I certainly echo exactly what you have said with regards to this being a time for us to move forward, and that's why we wanted to have this meeting this evening. I just want to underscore, because we got to this process because of the great combination of work by members of the task force, and it was a small group, as well as city persons who were involved. And I think I would be remiss and probably be chased out of the room or chased to my car if I don't do this properly, to make sure that this body of folks and those online know the persons who were instrumental in bringing this forward. From the task force members, one's present here right at the moment, Dorothea Jones, Carrie Mays, and Mercy Frazier were the task force members who worked on this subcommittee that reviewed the RFP respondents and have come up with these great persons who will be doing the research for us, who will be introduced. On the city side, we had RJ Singh. RJ is here. He's multitasking as always. Lori Nelson, who you heard from. Maggie Corman, who is over there handling the information as far as the online. Maya Getter, and you heard from the chief, Mariangeli Solas Severa. Those were the persons. Give them a hand, folks, because they spent the additional time doing this work. So with that being said, I wanted to be able to have us have a discussion about how we got to this place with the, as far as the RFP. Then after that, we're going to have a conversation and a presentation by the respondents and the researchers who have been selected for this process. And then we'll go forward from there. Yes, the audience will have an opportunity when we get to the general session to have some moments in order to be able to ask questions, certainly before we conclude this meeting. So at this time, Thea and Carrie, I'm gonna let you guys take it away as to the issue of how we got to this place in terms of what was considered during the RFP, and then as well, you can introduce the teams that won. Okay? All right. Oh, yeah.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I am going to tell you something about the RFP. The RFP covered certain time frames in history, and all of them are very important in Black history in terms of understanding why there is a need to explore the idea of reparations. Many of us know something about Boston's history, but a lot of us are not as fully aware of the impact that we have had on Boston's history because we were enslaved. So the time periods that are going to be explored, and the researchers will give you an idea of what they're going to be doing as far as their research. The first time period is between 1620 and 1690. And that is the period of economic growth in the colonies, and it deals with the Atlantic slave trade and transatlantic slave economies. Then the second period is 1690 to 1750. And that is the period of economic growth and involved
Es el periodo del crecimiento económico.
Trade. And the third period is
El tercer periodo
1750 to 1800.
es
The fourth period is
1700 a 1800.
1860. The fifth period is 1860 to 1940. That's one that many of us are, certainly our grandparents and parents, were very much aware of and were very impacted by the legacies of slavery. And the final period is 1940 to the present. And I think everybody in this room probably is very well aware of the impact of the legacies of slavery during that time period, because of all of the things that were going on in Boston and other places. But we're just dealing with Boston in particular. What we had to do in terms of trying to find the right researcher to cover these time periods. The RFP had certain elements that had to be considered in order for the RFP to be viable. Those were, they had to submit written information, that they had to follow the RFP for every element that was required in the RFP. They had to be interviewed, which we did interviewing. Sometimes it was on Zoom, and it was a very tedious process. We had to do a lot of reading, a lot of reading. And I think that everyone here will be very pleased with the outcomes for the researchers that were selected for this important event.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karen.
Yes, so my name is Kara, if you didn't know, nickname is Care Bear a lot in the community. So about the scope of work, the research teams will soon embark on research and writing process to produce a comprehensive written report documenting Boston's role in the transatlantic slave trade. Throughout the research process, the partners will present updates about their findings with opportunity for community members to engage with their ongoing work.
So at this particular point in time, we want to introduce to you, and maybe what we will do, either you can stand and present or you're in turn to do it in your time, as was presented by Task Force member Dorothea Jones as to the 6 time frames or time periods that were addressed here. We were able through this process to select 2 teams that will provide the underpinning research that we need to have in order to be able to get to phase 3 of this report, which is, well, phase 2 of this report, which is 1, to come up with a plan as to what should reparations for the city of Boston be. And then phase 3, which is the action plan. That's, as Carrie pointed out, that all of this will be done at the appropriate point in time in combination with and in conjunction with conversations with those of you in the community. Many have lived experiences, and all of this will be undertaken by the researchers. So what I would like to do is to introduce the 2 teams and then give them an opportunity to give you a sense of how they will go about carrying out their work. The team that was successful in being able to be selected for 5 of the units that were mentioned, 1620 to River to 1940, with Dr. Curry Greenwich, Dr. Kendra Field, and Kiera Singleton. That's the teams that will be 5 of the units from 1620 to 1640. The other team, as soon as I can turn this the right way. Well, I know that they're the Northeastern team because that's my alma mater. So certainly, so hold on for one moment. Let me just find out where to get the Northeast team. This is a Unit 6 from 1940 to the present. And that team consists of Professor Margaret Berner, Dr. Deborah Jackson, Dr. Ted Landsmark, Donna Bivens, and Richard O'Brien. So at this time, I would like one or others of the team, the first team, to be able to speak to the audience about what they are going to be able to do during your research.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Kiera Singleton, and I am part of the first research team. Dr. Carrie Greenwich and Dr. Kendra Field. They're unable to be here tonight, so I'm just going to represent for us. So we are a research team all from Tufts University. Dr. Greenwich and Dr. Field are professors there, and I am an incoming postdoctoral fellowship fellow at Tufts. So we have the first 5 units, and really what we're going to be thinking about is how does the history of slavery shape Boston's history? How does it propel Boston into an economic superpower? So thinking about the ways in which colonization begins with the enslavement and removal of indigenous people, all the way to thinking about how Black people are enslaved and how their labor is used to build the wealth of Boston. So we're going to go into the archives. We're going to be looking at all different types of industries. So thinking about the history of enslaved people and businesses, some that we don't often think about, distilleries, shipyards, brickyards, thinking about the ways in which Black people contributed to the material culture of the city. So thinking about enslaved potters, thinking about enslaved people who are working in taverns, even though they're not allowed to eat or drink in those places. Oftentimes we think about Black people solely on plantations, but that is not the way that it works in this city. And so one of the things that we're really going to show is how central slavery was to building the wealth of Boston, and how that translates into the beginning of the 20th century.
You're up.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the task force, and good evening, Madam Mayor and Mayor staff. So appreciative to all of those who reviewed our proposal and have the confidence in our team to investigate and to report to the task force on events and practices in the city from 1940 to the present that build on the legacy of slavery and that result in processes that disadvantage African Americans in this city from 1940 forward. I am, as Chairman Feaster has said, my name is Margaret Burnham. I'm a 50-year resident of the city of Boston. I'm a little older than 50 years. I also claim New York, but right now I'm a Bostonian. So is every other member of our team, a resident of this city. The other members of our team include Dr. Deborah Jackson, who is here. Dr. Jackson is I should say that I'm a distinguished professor of law and African American studies at Northeastern University and a former judge in the city of Boston. Dr. Jackson is a former mayor in a town in a city in Georgia, and a PhD in economic development. Also on our team, Dr. Ted Landsmark, a political scientist and an architect. Dr. Richard O'Brien here, political scientist from Northeastern University. Dr. O'Brien runs the John D. O'Brien Center at Northeastern University, and a longtime Boston family, part of the woven into the history of this city. Also on our team, Giordana McCagney. Giordana is a archivist and is in charge of all of the many archives at Northeastern University that trace the history of the city of Boston. And those archives will be of incredible value to us as we go about our work. Donna Bivens, a historian here in the city, and an activist and an active member of the United Minority Neighborhoods organization that looked into questions of educational equity with enormous rigor in the city, is also a member of our team. So we have a fairly well-rounded team of scholars and activists helping to deliver to the city a product that will provide a solid basis for the consideration of the task force and its ultimate findings. Our team has selected 3 major subjects for investigation. As I said, our time period is 1940 to the present. We are looking, and specifically with respect to these 3 areas, our concern will be to surface practices and policies, official and unofficial, of the city itself that contributed to the conditions, lived experiences, conditions, and disadvantages experienced by African Americans who are resident of the city. So there's lots of history out there. Our investigation will be quite focused on what the city did or didn't do to fully integrate, recognize the humanity and contributions of African Americans to the city. We will be looking obviously at educational inequity in the city, and not from the 1960s forward. That area has been well mined by many others, but really looking at the efforts of individuals in the African American community to combat the discriminations they faced in the 1940s and 1950s that we can lay at the feet of the city, and digging into that material, surfacing it and organizing it so it will be of maximum use to the task force. In addition to that, we will look as well at the police department and the fire department and public works in the city, and consider the ways in which those units of the city, those agencies for the city, excluded African Americans from the centerpiece of their work, and also in other ways negatively affected the experiences of this community in the city. And thirdly, we will look as well at the Boston Housing Authority and consider the policies of the Housing Authority that negatively affected African Americans. You might well ask, what does all this have to do with reparations and slavery? And the point here is slavery was an institution that obviously at one point terminated in the city of Boston, but it left a long shadow over the life of this city. And our job will be to trace the ways in which the marginalization of the African American community in this city, the exclusions experienced by African American residents of this city find their roots and history in the early slave days of Massachusetts and Boston, but even more generally, those who came into this city, who moved into this city in the Great Migration, 1930s and 1940s, obviously moved into a city that was deeply segregated because of the existence of slavery as a national institution. And so those are the themes. We will also obviously be looking at the criminal justice system, but we are really focusing, and we'll be looking as well at the procurement practices of the city, but our major focus will be on the three themes that I've described. We're honored and excited to engage in this long overdue work and to work with those of you in the community who have rallied and struggled to make this process, to initiate this process, and to work with those on the, as led by my dear brother Easter, who have initiated this process and made it possible for us to do this work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Vernon. Thank you very much, Ms. Singleton. I hope those in the audience and those online, after hearing the presentation as to how this research will go forward, will agree with me that we have this in most capable hands to be able to get the product that we will need collectively in order to respond to that question. There are many reparation task forces around this country. We know it's Evanston, Illinois. We know that California just came out with an announcement about a week ago. We know there's a national organization that's on reparations. We know there's an international association on reparations. We know that Atlanta, Georgia has done a program, and there's probably cities that I haven't even mentioned. So there are a lot of efforts to be here, but we're starting our process here with this work that we're going to ask our researchers to do. And as you know, that even with regards to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which our good brother, late three, as we called him, but Charles Ogletree, who represented the persons there, two elderly persons who were there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where with those who know the history of what transpired there with the planes bombing and all of the businesses burned out and people being killed, their case was thrown out. Their case was thrown out. So the task that we're embarking on is not going to be an easy one, folks. And we recognize that, but with the city council and in terms of with the mayor, we will carry on. And have mentioned in the city council, my counselor, Tanya and Fernandez Anderson is here. Counselor, I'm going to invite you, and all next to her is former Senator Diane Wilkerson. I want to acknowledge both of them. Counselor, I think it's appropriate for you to come and say a few words because it is this was initiated in the city council in order to take this task on, and you prepared the ordinance back in December of 2022. So if you choose not to want to speak, that's fine, but I would definitely give you an opportunity to do so.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I feel like I wouldn't do justice to doing any type of speech today. There's so much more work, ahead of us that needs to be done. Councilor Mejia, shout out to Councilor Mejia, and then myself and Councilor Morel file this. But it wouldn't take place if it wasn't for the work of the people sitting in this room today. People like Aziza Robinson Goodnight, people like, you know what, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna point and folks are gonna like raise their hand because I don't remember names. I'm so sorry, photographic memory, not for names.
Let's acknowledge them. Let's have them.
Please, Aziza, please stand. Where's the Reverend?
He went and stepped out.
Oh, did he? Edwin, please rise, because of your work as well. And the pastor, Dante, Reverend Dante, thank you, pardon. As well as Madam Antonia, and
all of you who were involved with the city council would bring this stand
there you
up.
go.
Why don't you just
Please, thank you so much. And in the spirit of that, it's Black History Month, and before it's my tradition as an African to always pay homage to those who came before us, and for that, I may be older than you, but you certainly came before me in this field, in this work, and all the blood, sweat, and tears for our ancestors and all of our beauty and might and work that has been put forward before it can get to a counselor, Tanya Fernandez Anderson from Academy Homes. And now I'm here before you to support you in the work. What I'm going to say is that some of this, in the way that the RFP was written, I know that community has certain questions about who wrote it, how did it come about, who put it together. So there may need to be some auditing in terms of understanding exactly how we got to the RFP. And I think they're all conversations. So I heard a lot from community, and some people are saying that there is no pathway to reparations. So it's a moot point. And this is coming from our own people, right? We hear comments like that. And it's hurtful because so many of you who have dedicated your lives, if not the last, decade, to this work. And then I would say that you will see some of those hearings come up. It's going to take a level of collaboration and partnership between city and community. And I think that's where I come in, where I hopefully can be sort of the person that represents everyone and the consolidator to create that partnership or the platform to be able to have the hard conversations. They can't always happen in meetings like these. They can't always happen in breakfast hour or, outside of a press conference protesting. And then, our mayor was here and then it becomes a very polite meeting, right? But this issue is very contentious, right? It's very hard. It's very personal and for obvious reasons. We don't want to gloss this over. We don't want this work to be sort of, brushed up. And I think that all of the people here sitting down in our task force have dedicated their time and their heart to doing the best that they can with what they were given. I've been very transparent with you that they had a task to do and they did just that. So for that, I thank you so much for your time and dedication to get us to where we are today. Now, how do we get to the next step? How do we support those Black and brown people in City Hall that has a job that sometimes has to do it not 100% in the way that they want to show up? How do we have the tough conversations with our mayor sometimes, if she disagrees, to say, hey, I know that you want to do good, but let me help you come to this realization where we do it intentionally and 100% transparently, the real way. And then there's the other part about who gets prioritized for reparations. Who does this impact? And that conversation is hard because when you have marginalized communities that are pitted against each other to fight for crumbs, then you're left with a whole bunch of divide and conquer. And so I think the conversation is clear, in my opinion, my very hopefully modest opinion, that the priority is the African-American people as we understand it first. And then if there are programs that come from that beyond reparations, that's, I think, a second level, a different conversation. But when it comes to reparations, that we prioritize the African-American people who always get the shorter end of the stick. I can say that because I am an African woman, not first generation. I am an African immigrant who came here, who benefited from your sweat and tears, from your breast milk, from your work. I can't repay you enough. I'm also, and I joked about this today with Aziza, but I'm also a freeman, an African freeman, but from Africa, directly from Africa. So I want to say, and I can never repay you enough, I want us to come to a point where we Black people, the diaspora, no, we are not a monolith, but we Black people, the diaspora, that we support the African-American, because the African-American is always going to look out for everybody else. So we prioritize that, and then we get to the mission. I thank you so much, and I hope to be a part of the journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Counselor. As I know the pastor would say, we just say amen and we can go home. But that's not going to happen here this evening because that concretize what our mission is. We talked about with our researchers, that's what they're going to be uncovering and providing for us. As a lawyer, I'm going to tell you, we need the facts, not visceral. Don't tell me how you feel, where you were. We need facts. And that's why we're starting with this process from 1620 to the present. You've heard from the two teams that are presenting, and we're going to get that information. It's going to take time for them in order to do it. The counselor did crystallize exactly the direction in which we're going to be heading. And yes, there will be some conversations that will be uncomfortable. But that's how it is when you have a tough subject matter that you have to discuss. But we're going to put a process in place in order that we can have those conversations and probably multiple times in multiple locations. And with that, we have created within the task force. And before I move to that individual, I want to acknowledge that my fellow task force member, Lamerty Frazier, has arrived. So I want to have it noted for the record. As she is here. What we have created in terms of a community engagement process. And many of you who have sat through meetings and had conversations, you know that this person, Carrie Mays, is bullish on that particular issue to make sure that we're going to be doing that exactly as was stated both in the ordinance and what we all believe. This is a community issue that needs to be discussed with and amongst the community. So with that, I want to ask Carrie to talk about that community engagement process, and then I'm going to ask Chief Mariangeli to come and talk about how we're going to do that with the communications, so you know exactly how you can keep in contact with us, because we're not going to meet every week to talk about it. It's going to be a process for you to be able to get information, give some feedback, etc. And we want to talk about that as well. So before I bring the chief one, Carrie. Yeah, Carrie Bain, the Chief of Community Engagement.
Thank you. I see so many familiar faces, and I'm just so blessed and honored to be in a room with community who has helped raise me and been my village. And now this is my opportunity, even though I'm young, to give back to you. I'm just honored and floored to be the chair of the community engagement subcommittee. And this process cannot move without you. You have to be the priority, the center, the voice. And even though this hasn't been solidified with the team, I'm sure that they know that we have to have community engagement and community be in the implementation of what the community engagement plan process is going to look like. And so you all know me, I'm not much of a talker, I like to get to work. And since the first day that I've been appointed to this task force, I said, they asked me, what do you want to do? What is the first thing you want to do? And I said, I'm ready to get to work. And so I'm blessed, I'm honored. I want to make sure, I just want to thank Councilor Tanya Anderson for just that beautiful affirmation, especially as we are in Black History Month. I'm just so blessed that this whole entire room is full, right? And I hope moving forward that you don't stop, that you keep showing up. I don't know if you watched the Grammys last night, but Jay-Z talked about you keep on showing up. Reach out to your younger, because Black people are not a monolith. And just like how Black people are not a monolith, so are young people, Black mothers, Black doctors, Black fathers, Black teachers, right? Reparations means different to all of us in the community, depending on our positionality in society and how we contribute that. So the next time you come to this meeting, invite the younger ones, the teenagers. They need to be a part of this process. They need to be a part of history. Invite your daughters, your sons, your uncles, your cousins, and make this room triple the population that it is now. Because I believe that Boston can be the pathway and be an example, but it doesn't start from the institution. It has to start within the community and grassroots first. And I know that as somebody who's organized a protest, that it has to start with the people. And so I'm just really glad that, I get this opportunity. I look forward to working in collaboration with the community and having your voice being implemented into this process. And like I said, do not stop showing up. So we pass it back to the chair. Thank you to this chair.
Thank you very much, Carrie. We echo her comments. We underscore her comments as to the process. We've said it again, and as they say, sometimes, repeated, it makes it ingrained in folks' mind. So we don't want folks to be asking the question, well, can I get the information? Can I be involved? Can you be engaged? The process for you to do that will be outlined, because we just can't do things in the whole. At least I'm not used to doing it as a lawyer, doing things in the whole. So we do have ways in which there will be able to be that communication. And now we want to talk about that. And Martina is going to, as I understand it, you're going to be the one that's going to do that. So here's the microphone.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. All right. Thank you, Chair Feaster. I'm Martine Mango. I am the Director of Communications for the City of Boston's Equity and Inclusion Cabinet. Just wanted to do a really quick intro. Carrie, I'm so glad you said that piece about bringing your daughters, because I actually brought mine here today. I think right there. I too think it's very important. So what do I do? What is my job here? Well, my job is to bring an awareness to the community. My job is to make stakeholders out of the community, to engage with the community, to make sure that everyone knows what exactly is going on so that you can also be a part of these things. So what I do, one of the things I do is update the website. So that will be home base. If you go to boston.gov/reparations, you will be able to find all the information there. There's actually, you can't really see it in that picture, but that button there says for comments. So if you have comments, that is actually how you can get it over to us. There's also an email address, reparations@boston.gov. If you want to share any information with us, if you feel broadly that there are other channels that we could be reaching out to, because that is your preferred channel, please share it with me, because I want everyone to be involved and engaged. And lastly, our social media channels as well. We do have a LinkedIn, and we also have an Instagram, which is @EquityCabinet. So please follow us. Shameless plug, if you haven't already, please follow us there as well. But again, my name is Martine, and I'm really looking forward to the future and how this unfolds. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Martine. And again, you know, probably back in my day, we did this by a slow walk, and in terms of with the paper, where you have ways and means in terms of by the electronic media and social media in order to engage with us. So we encourage you to do that as we go through this process. This is the starting point. This is the point at which we want to go forward. We want to get to that phase that I mentioned to you, that when we get the information back from the researchers who will be involved and with you, they'll be doing oral histories with folks. There's a whole process that they will engage in, including the persons that stood up who were involved in the initiation of this communication with the council. They all are persons who have some lived experiences, know people with whom we ought to be communicating, and I'm sure the researchers will be doing that. Because the end point of this is one, to find out what reparations needs to look like for Boston. So I want to focus folks on the fact we're not dealing with reparations that's going to happen for Georgia. We're not doing reparations that's going to be happening for, you know, Nevada. We're talking about what reparations, what was and as I've said many times in the past, that what we're talking about, and I'm sure they're going to be looking at, and was stated by our researchers, they're going to be looking at individuals, businesses, corporations, institutions that benefited from, participated. There are churches here, and there are others who have already begun studies talking about where there are and were enslaved people. So there's a body of information, as Professor Burnham talked about, that is out there that they will be availing themselves of. So we're not starting, say, from point zero in terms of the information, but we want to put it in a cogent manner such that we can have this conversation that's based upon facts. Once we get to that point of getting the information from our researchers, the information and engagements with the community, the next thing that we will be doing is, okay, what is the action plan? What will it be? And that's where the councilor mentioned, Gary mentioned, others have mentioned,